on your agenda in case I have to open it.
You want to look at it,
Yeah, just for, just,
the agenda?
yeah, just,
Exit out of the line.
in case I have to open it. On your agenda in case I have to open it. We ready?
We're ready.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We'll call the August 22nd Commission on Equity meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. You have the agenda that was provided to you, as well as some other items, some other reading materials. So we'll just go right through the agenda tonight. So the first thing we'll do is I'll accept the motion to approve the agenda, previous minutes, meeting minutes, and consent items.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes, et cetera, from the July 25th meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second that we approve the agenda, previous meeting minutes, and the consent items. Any discussion, any corrections? Then all in favor of accepting the motion as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Okay, motion carries. The item 2 on the agenda tonight is public comment. And so I understand we have at least one in writing that was provided to us. And hopefully you've taken a review of that item. Do we have anyone present by phone that would like to make a public comment?
Vice Chair Brown, there are no additional attendees in attendance.
Okay, great. Then that will take care of our public comment part of the agenda. The next item is our inspirational item from Commissioner Clay.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share two things, one very short, the other a little longer. When I despair, I remember that all through history, the ways of truth and love have always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they seem invincible, but in the end, they always fall. Think of it, always. Mahatma Gandhi. And then more current is a piece out of John Lewis's book, Carry On, towards the end of the book. He says, I would like to be remembered as a boy from Troy, Alabama, who saw something, said something, and did something about it. I hope that those who learn my story are inspired to take action in their communities, to push, to pull, to fight for the rights of all people. It's important to never lose hope and to realize that in the end, what matters was how you treated people, whether you were kind to them, and how you would responded to the wrongs that you and your brothers and sisters faced. Every generation leaves behind a legacy. I am one of the last of mine. I am going to pass the torch. These fierce young people protesting, marching, standing up, and sitting in are like I was.
Thank you. Those are very inspirational from two people that we're all very familiar with. So thank you very much. Great. Item 4 is our business item for the month. And today, and we have a finance presentation from Troy Wu, our finance director. Shannon, did you need to introduce him or?
Well, Troy needs no introduction, and I
Okay.
know one of his slides is actually going to be an introduction, so we'll just jump right into the presentation.
He's wearing a Gonzaga collar, so lanyard, so that's good.
Oh,
I like him already.
excellent. Thank you. Well, thank you for allowing me to speak before you tonight. It's a pleasure, and thank you for what you're doing for the city and sharing your expertise and time and insight with us. That's where Phil gets us started. I was asked to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of finance and, some of the reach we have into the community, and I'll share a little bit of budget information as well. Because we are in the midst of budget season, so this is really a big focus for the city here for the next 4 or 5 months here to the end of the year, so. Advanced slide, or do you want to hand me the mouse, or? Yeah. Yeah. Let 'em try. Yeah. All right, as Shannon said, I will provide a little bit of a background of myself. It's been quite a while since I've shared that. It was eye-opening for me. I did receive my accounting degree from Gonzaga. I like to tell people I went there before basketball was famous. I was there back when it was known for an academic school.
Oh.
So, quite a while ago, in other words. I did start my government accounting career at Spokane County in 1995, and this is where the surprising part was. I keep thinking 1995 is like 10 years ago, but it's not. So my feelings are a little bit hurt in thinking back. But I worked in property tax information back for the county. I only lasted about 6 months there. It was, I had an opportunity to go to another job, but I mean, this was a really eye-opening job for me, answering property tax questions. There's very few happy people when it comes to property taxes. So it was a good introduction to government, and especially local government accounting.
Well, I got mine in the mail today, so I apologize if I'm not so happy.
Understandable. The opportunity that arose for me was a job at the city of Spokane. When I went to college, I actually did 2 summer internships with the city of Spokane, so that was going to be my dream job. I finally was offered the position there. I was the first field accountant for the sewer department. Again, very eye-opening, very large department. At the time, it was about 66,000 customers. That's more than, it's about 2.5 times the size of Lacey's Utilities. From there, I had an opportunity to go to the city of Pullman, where I was the city's finance director. Is there a way to?
Yeah, that moves. We learned that at the last Commission on Equity
Oh,
meeting, so if
okay.
you just pick it up and drag it, Troy, I think we can move it over to the corner.
Okay. Oh, perfect. That's another learning moment for me. Excellent. So I went from Spokane to the city of Pullman, where I became their finance director. I was also the city clerk and risk manager for that city. In many ways, Pullman was more of a full service city than Lacey. We had a fire department, we had a library, we did the accounting for an airport. We also had a transit system that we did accounting for, so really wide range of services. I was also responsible for administering the cemetery. There was 3 cemeteries there at the city. I also managed a wheat farm while I was there.
City wheat farm.
The city inherited about 600 acres, and for some reason, they asked me to think about what crops should be grown on there, decide when to sell crops. It was probably the most uncomfortable thing I've ever done. It's just so far out of my wheelhouse, but we managed to make a little bit of money on crops. And then I came to the city of Lacey in 2009. I've been here ever since. So it's a little bit about me. So here I am responsible for finance, which also includes information services, or IT, information technology. So a pretty wide range of services here as well, but not quite as many as Pullman. I do want to share what we do, and I apologize, this is so small on screen, but we're 33 employees department wide. This is a snapshot of our leadership team. We have Christy Wolf, who is our financial services manager. On the other side, they have Jason Platter, who is our IS manager. And then under Christy, we have Chelsea and Carol. Chelsea oversees our accounting division and Carol oversees our utility billing function. This is the accounting division org chart. It is 10 employees in whole. We do all the traditional accounting functions. We pay the bills, we collect the city's money, we're responsible for financial reporting and the subsequent audits. We also do the budget, which is in itself a task. We do lots of external reporting. We help out Public Works quite a bit with their annual reporting of, say, street projects as an example, but a wide range of services we provide in accounting. This is a relatively new team for us. Like many employers and other organizations, we've had quite a bit of turnover since the beginning of COVID. Out of the 10, I think, and if you count the 2 vacant positions we have currently, 7 out of 10 of these folks have less than 1 year with us. We have bright, eager people, but we're still learning in a lot of ways, but we have, we've been able to find really good staff to replace those folks that have moved on, but yeah, a pretty new team, and we're still learning each other, and we're still kind of learning how to work, through our processes and teaching and mentoring as we go.
Has it been a challenge to try to fill those 2 vacant positions?
It has. It's been relatively challenging, certainly in the last year. I think government in general, I think we need to find ways of attracting kind of new generations. I think that's I don't think government work is viewed the same way as it used to, which is not all bad, but yeah, it's a much different world out there. Accounting in itself is challenging. I think about 7, maybe 10 years ago, they changed the requirements of the CPA exam to basically you need 5 years worth of credits instead of 4. So most people, I think, have to go on and get a master's degree in order to qualify to sit for the CPA exam. So I think that is, the elevation of those qualifications, I think, have made it a little more challenging as well. But these are very specialized and very technical positions. So, that's certainly added to the challenge as well. But like I said, we've found some really great people. I'm excited for our newcomers. Utility billing. This is definitely the division that we have the most reach into the community, and I'll focus in on this a little bit later, but we send out bills. It's very similar to the property tax pass that I have. We're sending bills for service out for water, sewer, stormwater, and we also bill on behalf of LOT, which is the regional sewer treatment plant. We have about 26,000 customers. We are the biggest utility in the region. The reason for that is we serve much of the unincorporated area of Thurston County. We're probably 40% larger than Olympia's utilities. So we're serving a population of closer to 85, 90,000 rather than our population of, about 55,000 or so. Like I said, we primarily focus on sending out those bills, collecting payments. We also are responsible for the violations bureau. So if you receive a speeding ticket or some sort of moving violation from the police department, you can come to this counter and pay. So we're just making everybody happy down there. But this is also a relatively new staff as well. So we have 12 FTEs within this area. 4 of the positions are limited term. And what that means is they're 2-year, guaranteed 2-year positions, and we're going to take that 2 years and evaluate our structure and see what's really needed for the long term. But very similar. So 8 out of these 12 folks are brand new and less than a year as well. So very similar in terms of turnover in this area as well. And kind of the same thing. We've we're excited about the new folks that have come in, but we are still very much in a learning mode. But yeah, these folks are doing well for us. And our last division is our information technology. We have 9 folks in this area. This is the one stable area, believe it or not. You think about technology and you think about people moving from job to job and scarcity of employees, we've managed to stay mostly intact. We do have 2 new folks here in this area, so 2 out of 9 have less than a year, but the rest have been here quite a while. In fact, just this morning, I handed out 2 5-year pins and 2 10-year pins to this team. So it has been the one stable area for us. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. Like I said, I do want to talk about, our reach into the community. We are mostly a internal service function. We don't have, like I said, we don't have a lot of public interface, but what we do, it's just not probably as much as you see from some of the other operations within the city. So let's talk about utility billing. Like I said, 26,000 customers out there, serving a population of somewhere around 80,000. This is, I believe, the busiest front counter in City Hall. We take anywhere between 2,500 and 3,500 calls per day. That's what, 150, 180 calls per day. Actually, 2,500 to 3,500 a month, which is somewhere around 150 to 180 per day. I think our service delivery has changed a little bit because of the pandemic. It used to be a very busy counter, when people would come in person, but that behavior has changed a little bit. But it's still a relatively busy in-person counter. This is like I said, this is not a service that most people appreciate. We all love clean water and we love for sewage to go away and never come back. But when it comes to paying the bill, that's not always a happy moment for folks. A lot of people get surprised about their irrigation bills here. They turn on their sprinklers in May and they kind of forget, and then they get this relatively large bill come June and July. Yeah, so there's a lot of difficult calls that this group takes. But we found the right mix of people that just love customer service and are able to turn people around. So we're pretty fortunate in this area.
Those calls.
Absolutely.
Do some of them go to the menu where they can get some answers, or do the representatives take all 150, 180 calls in person?
Those are the calls they take that either make it through our website or we do have a phone tree in which you have payment methods. And I think I have a couple bullet points on that, but no, these are the kind of, call it the last resort, is to talk to somebody in terms of getting information. There's, like I said, there's quite a bit of questions about their actual consumption that, customers don't quite believe they could have used that much water. We do have a pretty steep incentive not to use water here in Lacey. I mean, we're about conservation of water. So when you get into those upper tiers of water, it does get pretty expensive. So
How many people do you have doing that?
we have 12 on that whole division. We have 5 people that are out in the field. They take care of the meters, getting meter reads when we can't get the radio reads. So we're primarily a radio read system. So the meters actually call in and give us reads. And then the rest of the staff is dedicated towards that customer service piece. So yeah, about 6 people plus a supervisor are right here in the office.
That's pretty good.
Like I said, we do have online options. We also have a telephone option for people to pay bills. I would say probably about 40% of our payments come through these 2 options. We are in the process of implementing a new payment portal. So we're going to have a new provider. Should be a little more advanced than what we're seeing now in terms of features. We currently, as an example, we currently don't have a language translator on our current website, but the new one will. So we're looking at end of year to have that in place. We also have language translators for our telephone payment option. So you could actually call in and make a payment without having to talk to somebody. The computers actually could recognize your voice. You could actually just talk right to the computer. So we do have language translators available on that. So we're certainly trying to give folks as many options as possible to make their payments, and hopefully the easiest methods for them as well. I did want to talk about a couple of our discounts. We do have within our Lacey Municipal Code 2 different discounts. One is for low income and disabled, and then we also have a low income and over the age of 62. So that's a program in which folks could apply to. I think it's a 2-year renewal, might be a 3-year renewal, but that's available for people out there that could use a little bit of assistance with their utility bills. So that's our utility billing division. Do you want to talk about the budget? Like I said, it's very timely.
You show us the top and bottom lines.
Exactly.
We probably won't understand everything in between.
This is, I like to call it the most important planning document we have in the city. I'm sure that community and economic development has a different opinion, but for me, this is our roadmap for the year. We get our direction from council, you know, what priorities are funded, you know, what services we're going to provide. So for me, I think it's really the strongest message we get from our city council as to where the city is going to go. This is a process that has built-in avenues for the public to be engaged. We are required to have 3 public hearings each year, one of which is on the revenue sources for the city. It's primarily focused on property tax, but we cover all areas of revenues for the public through our process anyway. And then we have just 2 public hearings on the budget in general. It could include revenue as well, but it's anything related to the budget. Folks come in and ask questions or make suggestions or make complaints if need be. I will have to say that we don't have a lot of public engagement. I like to think part of it's because of the strength of Lacey's finances and the fact that we're able to maintain levels of services. We've never had a single layoff in Lacey's history. We have, for the most part, maintained all service levels throughout its history. I've worked for different cities that had budget cutbacks and had much more public engagement. That's when you start to cut programs that mean and impact families and folks in your community, that's when you hear about it. So I take, in a lot of ways, not hearing much from the public as a good thing. Because I think, you know, if it were otherwise, we'd probably hear. But that is definitely available for the public. We do have different areas that we use for public outreach. We have a relatively new program with our city council called Conversations with the Council, and often budget, especially this time of year, becomes topics of the conversations with council. So we've done that in the past. We're actually working on a video series as we speak to get more information out to the public, kind of short little videos that's kind of common questions and some common information that folks might be interested in. In fact, I was just talking to John just before this meeting about, you know, maybe coming in and answering a few questions to kind of supplement what some of the data we already have, but we'll definitely get those out available for the public. We've met with various community service groups. You know, we get asked to speak from time to time. The city manager especially, I like to call it the city manager speaking tour. He's always being asked to come out and speak, and the budget is a big focus of that. So we're getting out there as much as we can.
Troy, a couple of, oh, sorry, Commissioner Clay, do you want to go first?
I had there's a Lacey News that comes out with the utility bills, and that I'm realizing that I'm not getting them because I have an online payer. And so I think there's a lot of good information in that, and they're using the utility bill to you know, as the conduit for it. So just
Yeah, that's great.
FYI, somehow sending that to the online payers, the automatic payers.
Yeah.
So Commissioner Clay, just really quickly on that, I know Troy was talking about kind of a new system allowing people, to pay online. And so we certainly want to see if there's a nexus where we can push out information. Lacey Life, which is the newsletter that you're referring to, is available online on our website.
Yeah,
And there's actually a way for you to sign up to receive it straight to your email box on the website.
yeah.
And so we want to, like you were mentioning, push that out to all of the customers who only receive e-bills here in the near future
Uh-huh.
to say, please sign up so that you can, receive this information.
Yeah,
And the new online portal will have the actual bill will actually look just like the one that's mailed. So there's gonna be some improvements there. So there is that little snippet at the bottom of those mailed bills that would be an opportunity as well to get our message out. So yeah, we're looking forward to having some improvements within that area.
So just a couple of comments on the public outreach. So I know Troy mentioned conversations with council, and just to kind of give a little bit more background to this, we typically get a couple of council members and then subject matter experts from the city to come and have a dialogue about, a certain program or event that may be going on. And so we have been holding these online for the last year, and part of that is, allowing anybody to join anywhere. But members of the public can actually ask questions live, and we do have somebody who is going through kind of the Q&A because we don't have time for every single question that might be out there. So, it's a really great way if there are, members of the public who are watching and want to learn a little bit more and maybe ask some very specific questions. That is one opportunity to do so. Troy mentioned the video series. So if you go to the budget page on our website right now, there are actually our past 2 conversations on council that dealt with the 2022 budget. But it was really talking about ideas of, the concepts of the taxes and revenues and how they're used in the budget. So there are some evergreen elements to it. So I would also recommend that if somebody was interested in learning about property taxes, sales taxes, and then how we turn that into the budget moving forward. On the third point, you mentioned the community service groups, and, yes, we try to be as active as possible in the community, visiting a lot of kind of like the Lions clubs and, other social clubs out there as well. However, this group has some recommendations for additional service clubs or just maybe clubs, or, groups of people, community stakeholders that would, really be great benefit for us to go and have a conversation about the budget. I'd be happy to pass that on to Troy and organize something with our public affairs staff and finance and the city manager moving forward.
I think visiting some homeowners association, ACAs, which was like the Wheels Clubs just came out. We have a meeting coming up in a week or 2. I know that's gonna be a big topic. And people have their own thoughts and reasons and things, but if someone was there who knew, he could say, okay, here's your taxes. Yes, they went up, but here's what is going to A, B, C, D, the school district, this, and all those types of things, and these levies that were passed and all, just to remind them of those things, they seem to forget. All they see is, oh, did they forget? Oh, you voted for that. You said yes on it.
And to tag on to that, we do have an HOA Academy coming up this fall, and so that would probably be a very good
Yeah.
topic to have at the HOA Academy, but that would be a good thing to, once we get the dates finalized, I'll send that out to you all so you can disseminate that to any HOAs that you might be part of.
Yeah, if there was a handout, that would be helpful, as well. Or we could, in the community, we could provide, mail it to all of our association members. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, we have a lot of connections with HOAs.
Mhm.
And we have a neighborhood grant program that reaches out there too, so I know we have lots of connections, so yeah.
And the translation from, like, now, I live up toward the golf course up in that area. And gosh, they're building homes and new apartment complexes, and they just keep coming. And people going, more, why? But, if someone can explain, okay, that's the tax revenue and it goes to this, and here's how that was decided on in this plan. So they won't just go, well, nobody told me that they're gonna put apartments right there. Why are they doing that? They know about the service station, but they, the convenience store, but they don't know about apartments and homes. They're raising, saying about the convenience store.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we have lots of areas that we have public outreach in terms of comp plans. It gets into, your points in terms of, future development and the planning that goes behind that. And we have comp plans for utilities. In fact, that process is coming up, but you just kind of reminded me that there's change coming within those too. And they all have that public element, but I think we could certainly use more involvement in all of that process.
Yeah, that big picture stuff, being retired and taking a walk in the neighborhood. Oh my God, the stuff you learn. Your neighbors and what they're thinking, and sometimes I know better, but I'm like, I want to finish my walk. And my wife just retired. She starts to walk in the same things. Oh, I talked to this neighbor. No, they were telling me this and that. Just, wow. And these are people who vote and pay lots of taxes and this and that, but they have things on their mind that they need to be updated on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've found that once you engage somebody, the conversation just keeps going. It kind of just builds on itself as well. So, yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shannon, for.
Did anyone, any of the commissioners online on Zoom want to comment on anything? You have some thoughts? We don't want to leave you out. Makita, John?
No, nothing at this time. However, that HOA stuff does sound very good. I have one over in the unincorporated area, so, which is where I live. So that would be good once you guys figure out when you're gonna have that meeting.
Good point.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, let's talk about taxes, everybody's favorite topic. What's really interesting, and some of your comments really, very, really illustrate some of the fact that people don't quite understand everything there's about tax and all the different levels of taxes as well. And what you're going to see here is most of these taxes that are associated with Lacey, we don't have a great deal to do with. But we're certainly the face of it. I think cities have the most connection with communities and citizens in terms of the different levels of government. So we certainly accept that role in trying to get information out as best we can. But so let me give you a kind of a quick run through. Sales tax for the city of Lacey is the single largest source of revenue. That's what funds most services. So about 24% of all revenues comes through sales tax. This year's budget is about $14.2 million of sales taxes to be collected. Property tax is another significant source. We collect about 14% of all revenues as property tax, just over 8 million. But we'll say that I think Lacey's unique. Most cities, I believe, property tax is the single largest. The reason ours is lower is we don't have a fire department. So the fire department, Lacey Fire District 3 here has their own property tax levy, so that's not built into our levy. So it would probably be another 50 or 60% higher if we had fire in that. So that would put us in the $16-17 million range if we had the fire within that. Utility taxes, 12%. It's about 7.6 million. What's interesting here is sales tax is not collected by the city, that's collected by the state. It's actually collected by the retailers who then remit it to the state, and then the state sends it to all the various jurisdictions. Our property tax is collected by the county. That's how it is in all of Washington state. So cities don't actually collect property tax either. So the county does the same thing. They collect all property tax and then they remit those taxes to the various jurisdictions. So utility tax is the only one we collect, or the first significant category that we collect personally here at the city. What's a little bit different about utility tax is this is actually a tax on the provider. So PSC, the water department, solid waste, Solame, they collect a tax and then a tax is actually on those utilities themselves. So citizens don't pay that directly. And then we have kind of a catch-all of three different taxes, business and occupation tax or B&O tax, gambling tax and emission tax. These are also taxed on the business or the provider as well. So we don't have a lot of direct connection with our citizens in terms of tax collections, but so we collect just under 3 million in those three categories there, about 5% of all city revenues. So let me provide a little more detail within each one of these. So the sales tax just went up July 1st, 9.5% here in Lacey. To your point, it was not Lacey increasing the tax. That was a countywide tax on housing related issues. So what this is illustrating is out of that 9.5%, Lacey receives 0.85%. So quite a small percentage of that total sales tax. So the tax for the sales tax for the state is 6.5%. So they collect the majority of that. We have local option, which is 2%. This is made up of 8 different sales taxes, I believe. Transit has the biggest share of that. They're at 1.2%. You have chemical dependency, criminal justice, detention facilities, TCOM 911, and then the new housing sales taxes within that 2%. And so the local share is only 1%, and RCW requires the cities to share 15% of that with the county. So of that 1%, we get 85% of that 1%. So
1 penny.
1 penny. So we don't even get a penny of the full. But again, it's still our largest source of revenue for Lacey. Switching gears to property tax. I know this is a very busy slide. This is a 10-year history of the property tax levy. The 2022 levy for the Lacey region is about $11.60 per thousand. Lacey's is that light blue there at the bottom. So you can see my cursor there. So this is Lacey here at the bottom. So in 2022, Lacey's levy is about 96 cents per thousand. So we're about 8% of the total property tax within the region. You have state, which is primarily K-12 education, is the majority of the property tax. That's in the yellowish color there. You have Lacey Fire District. You have the local school district. You have the Olympia or the Thurston County PUD. You have the Port of Olympia. Library is within these taxes as well. So again, there's 6 or 7 different sources or 6 or 7 different jurisdictions that are taxing under property tax. But again, we have just a kind of a small piece of that pie here at Lacey.
So just one more follow-up on property taxes. So I mentioned the conversations with council and obviously that we're going to be augmenting those, but there is one dedicated to property tax. And so it is, really worth taking a listen to. But in addition to that, if you go to our website and again to the budget page, you'll find a link to the assessor's office where you can actually take a look at various properties and what that looks like in real dollars. So you could type your name in and learn a little bit more about where your property tax is going to. In addition to that, we have a tool on there for sales tax as well, where you can kind of plug in some numbers and, kind of see where the sales tax is distributed. So they're both really good tools for unpacking, what Troy's showing us here with these bar graphs and really seeing how that applies to the taxes on various properties.
Yeah, that was a very common question when I was with Spokane County, which was, where do my tax dollars go? And people were very surprised that about 50% of property tax goes to education. So yeah, a lot of eye-opening information within that. So yeah, I highly encourage you to visit the assessor's website.
That can be controversial too, people who don't have children. They don't want to pay that.
Absolutely. Utility taxes, like I mentioned earlier, this is a tax on the utility providers. We have different sources, different types of utilities. The largest source is electricity, so PSC is our largest taxpayer, coming in at just over $2.5 million of the 7.5. Lacey Utilities is another large one, so that's a combination of 4 utilities, like I said, water, city sewer, lot, which is the regional treatment plant, and then stormwater is built into utilities coming in at just over 2.4. Then we have fire suppression. This is a tax that pays for fire flow services within a utility. So our water utility actually maintains the fire hydrants and the fire lines, but that is a general government function. So the general government has to pay the utilities for that. So that tax pays for those services. And then we have natural gas at about 813,000, and then some smaller categories. Telephone, interestingly enough, has been shrinking quite rapidly. I think maybe we've hit bottom. So what's happening there is customers are getting rid of their landline phones. So that has shrunk the base. And what also contributes to that is there's a national prohibition against charging utility tax on data or the internet. And if you think about the use of your phone now, I think most people, it's primarily data. It's texting, internet, social media apps. Not too many people actually put their phone up to their ear and actually speak, which is the only portion of the bill that is taxable now.
I need to stop talking. I like to talk.
So this is probably half of what it was 10 years ago. I mean, it's been going down quite a bit just because of those changes. So it's been interesting and a little bit sad to watch at the same time. The other tax category, said it's primarily B&O tax. This is a tax for the pleasure of doing and conducting business within the city limits of Lacey. So just over $2.5 million comes from that source. Again, it's not a tax on the direct users or consumers, but a tax on the businesses. We do have an affordable and supportive housing sales tax. It's actually a tax credit against the state tax. So you did not see an increase to the sales tax rate for that. The state's portion of that 6.5% went down just a sliver to give Lacey a little piece to, help folks out in terms of finding ways to support that segment of our population. Mission tax, gambling tax. These are recovering taxes. I mean, these were just devastated by COVID. I mean, these are in-person services. Admissions is tax, anything you pay an admission to get into. So think movie theater. We couldn't go to the movies for like 18 months or however long it was. And same with gambling. That was a type of activity that just basically prohibited by the governor. So they're clawing their ways back. Admissions is still lagging behind a little bit, but gambling is pretty well back through at least through this half of 2022. So happy to see that some things are returning to normal. Leasehold tax. This is a tax on properties that the city leases. This is think of it as a replacement to property tax. So when the city owns property, it's property tax exempt. So that is, in a sense, takes property out of the assessment. But when we rent it for private use, the state government wants that share of the taxes back. So it comes in the form of leasehold. So those leases have a built-in tax, so to speak, on all those contracts out there. So just a little piece of our taxes come back in that form, but we do collect an equivalent of property tax through that source. well, in case you're wondering what kind of property we lease, we're leasing some of the land for the food truck court, if you've seen that by the new museum site. We have some properties, so right-of-way properties we've purchased that we don't need them quite yet, but we buy them when they become available, so we rent those out. I think we rent property for a couple of coffee stands in the city, so those are, like I said, coming back to the tax rolls in a sense. So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about doing business with the city, and what I'm talking about is selling goods or providing services to the city. There's a lot of protections for, you know, minority groups and women-owned businesses kind of scattered throughout the state code. So I'm not going to go through all these in detail, but anytime that we contract out, we do have provisions within our bid documents that talk about certain requirements. So we have to solicit bids from women-owned businesses where possible, from minority-owned businesses. There's requirements for our small works roster. This is an alternative way to purchase or actually have things built. So things under, it's 350,000 plus some inflationary number. It's an odd number. It's not an even number, but we could go to this list and have public work projects completed through that. So there's certain advertising requirements behind that we have to reach out to minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses.
You still have to get three bids.
We do have to do, actually, this one might be 5 if we use a small works roster. It's 3 or 5. But we could solicit bids directly, fund those contractors on this list, and then we have to post in the newspaper the fact that we went to that process. So it's an open process and you can see that. So it's a pretty good process for us. And then there's special provisions for architectural and engineering services, very much the same thing. It's about providing equal competition for groups. When we think of purchasing in general, there was actually an initiative back in the late 90s, kind of before I was in this kind of direct involvement in terms of city government, but it's basically, it was a voter approved initiative, I think, that was codified by the state legislature, but it's the same thing. It protects and mandates fair and equitable solicitation and purchasing through everything we do. So lots of protections, like I said, in terms of procurement within the city. I want to talk a little bit about kind of a catch-all category for us. Something I'm pretty proud of my profession. So we recently discovered an acronym that was widely used in our industry. I'm not going to say it because it's an offensive term. So nobody knew about this for 50 years. It's actually a term that's used in South Africa. So the accounting field immediately stopped using the acronym. GASB is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So this is kind of our leading policy and standard setting board within our trade. It took them a little while to get through their process to have an official statement or an official policy, but it basically renames what we do in terms of our year-end financial reporting. So it's now called the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. It used to be something else that had an acronym. When you said it out loud, was an awful term. So we don't use that anymore. So it was kind of amazing to see how fast the industry turned. You think about red tape and bureaucracy within government. This board is very much that, but for good reason. You have to go through very technical accounting standards and make sure they're correct. But it was amazing how fast that turned around. I've never seen anything like that in my field. So that was a pretty proud moment. But in the end, this statement obviously changes the name, so we don't use that acronym anymore. But it's really a commitment to promoting inclusiveness throughout our industry and throughout any uses of our financial statements. So again, very kind of proud moment for us. Want to just talk a little bit about what we do as an organization and certainly finance, what we're doing. We talked about all that turnover that we've had, so we're spending a lot of time supporting new employees and mentoring new employees. I will say the future is bright. I'm excited about where we're going as a department and what we're going to be able to provide to the public. But we are spending and investing a lot of time on our folks, and I think that's important. We want to teach people the Lacey way, and I think we're doing that.
I got a question.
Absolutely.
Does your department have a special relationship with St. Martin's? Because, they're known for their math program. They have, math degrees that they give and other things. I would think that you guys would really want to be partnering with them. Be looking for talent and looking for, research to be done and, things like that.
It's been a little while since I've been engaged with their business school. I'm trying to even think of when the last time I was there. I was there with basically seniors who are about to graduate their business degrees, and we just kind of had this roundtable discussion about what to expect out there, and had just different industries out there, on a panel. We've engaged the engineering school, probably more than kind of from the finance end.
Okay.
We've done some, was it the museum project? Kind of had like a little contest, like a schematic drawing type contest for the museum, if I remember right. It was a number of years ago as well. We're very involved with the makerspace. I'm not sure if you've all heard about that, but it's a program that gives access to technical equipment that nobody can afford on their own. So that's a kind of a joint venture, so to speak, between the Economic Development Council, the city, and the university. So definitely we have those partnerships, but it's another area that we could probably strengthen and maybe get some young students excited about working for the government.
Right, yeah. I mean, you can just walk over and ride the bicycle. Having a university just that close it's got to be an advantage.
We've talked a little bit, my staff's talked a little bit about even getting into the high schools. You think about kind of those real life skills that I don't think's in the current curriculum. How to balance a checkbook, how to reconcile your bank statement.
Well, some of us need that again. Well, since we never deal with a checkbook, Yeah, I wrote checks the other week. I messed up the first one, had to write it again. It's a lost art.
My
Yeah,
daughter,
but Tech Ed has a lot of good programs, the New Market Skills Center down in Tumwater, and each of the high school has their own Tech Ed program. Yeah. And they have a wide variety of programs.
I think there's a lot of opportunity there. My daughter's 27. She had asked me how to write a check the other day. She just refinanced her car, and I'm not sure, she didn't want my help, of course, but I hope she got a good deal, but I'm not sure what her knowledge is of amortization schedules of debt and what that really costs you in the end and all that, of course, but I'm always there. Anyone wants to talk about that, I could go on for hours about things like that, but
How long was 95 again?
27 years. Thanks for bringing it back up.
Yeah, Makita, John, do you all have any comments or anything? I didn't see a hand raise or anything. Do you guys have anything you want to add or ask?
Nope, I don't have anything.
I'm almost done here. Did want to talk about the employee wellness program a little bit. I don't know if other directors or other departments have talked about that, but this is a city that definitely invests in the mental and physical health of employees. I do lead a afternoon stretch when my calendar allows, so makes people get up away from their desks and just get away. I think for mental health, it's critical, and obviously getting up and moving rather than just sitting in front of a computer for 9 hours a day is critical,
So
so.
I'm sure you've been asked, so when are we gonna get a workout room, with the stuff to work out with?
Well, we have a little workout
Do
room
you?
here in our basement.
Okay.
It's employees, I don't know about volunteer boards, but I'm sure we could certainly discuss that, but
I'm good.
sounds like you get around in the neighborhood plenty, so.
Vice Chair Brown, just a little bit on the gym we have here at the city. So it is here on the facility and had been closed, for COVID for a couple of years. And now it's finally kind of reopening and we're getting to do a lot more in-person classes. So I know Troy mentioned the stretching. We also have a couple of yoga classes and I think mindfulness classes coming up as well.
Yep. Yeah, that stuff makes a huge difference within an organization. It does.
I just have one more slide, and we've kind of already talked about a lot of this. I was really, wanting to, engage this committee in terms of, or this commission in terms of potential engagement in the budget, and you've provided a lot of ideas on how we could improve that, but anytime that you may come up with an idea on how we could do a better job of getting this information out, we're all ears and always willing to get out there and share the city's budget and finances and taxes in general. So again, anytime you think of something, don't hesitate, please let us know. And then really just looking for feedback from this commission on anything I talked about today, or maybe something I didn't talk about. I'd be happy to answer any questions or take any feedback on how we do better, or take any complaints if there are any, but yeah, happy to.
Yes, I got my taxes today. I have a complaint. I got them. To me, the education piece is so important. And things are kind of cyclic, like the taxes come out this time of year. To me, a webinar or a YouTube video or something with someone explain, okay, tax season is coming. And you're gonna receive your taxes. You may see a 2% increase over last year. Here's what that 2% is for, and here's a general breakdown of some of the major categories that you're gonna be taxed for. And if you have questions, here's where you go and contact and those types of things. If that was made available, pushed out, people, oh, okay. So when I'm going for my walk in the neighborhood, I can talk about that, or I can refer them to that, go to homeowners association meetings and things of that sort. And I think that would, relieve, that would, make for better conversation and make people feel a little bit better and understand. And if one person gets it, they can share with all of their friends and other people that they're in contact with. And then I don't know if there are other things that happen during the course of the year that would be good to say, push out some information on it.
Video series.
Video series is what I'm saying, and key areas that would be important. I'm sure some agencies send out information like all of the development with all of the homes and apartments. What if someone talked about that? This is part of this plan that was approved at this time. Here's an overlay. Oh, this is gonna happen in this neighborhood. It's gonna be 200, worth of apartments. This neighborhood is gonna have 40 homes in it. Those types of things. People, oh, my neighborhood, we're getting more homes. This is what's going on. Oh, and by the way, there's gonna be an AMP over there, things like that. And they like, oh, AMP, great, it's close, it's gonna be close to my house, I can gas up there, and others gonna be upset about it, but they would have been forewarned, it's not forewarned, it's not dumped on them, and people, they're not gonna just, information comes out in the bill, and they're gonna go through and read it. they're gonna listen to what their neighbor has to say who read part of it with no understanding. Whatever that neighbor tells them is what's gospel, and that's what's gonna go through the community, but that series of things, which I think would be helpful
Sure.
education.
Yeah, Shannon's actually been working really hard on our communication plan and various methods and studying the preferred way to receive information, you know,
Mhm.
everyone has a little bit different method in which they prefer, so
Mhm.
yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunity there. It's interesting you mentioned the change. There's another change coming up in property tax, and it has to do with the educational portion of the property tax. I should probably, I made a note of it, because
Mhm.
you triggered something,
The
but
whole bill looked, the whole
Yeah.
report looked so different. and There was a lot of
Yeah.
information on it.
It looks so official, Thurston County tax. Whoa, what is this?
mine's probably in my mailbox now. I haven't seen it
That
yet.
little card I've been getting,
Yeah,
you
it
know?
Yeah.
used to be a card, but this is
Yeah.
more information.
Yeah, I've in the previous, you know, when I was in Pullman, I actually worked with the county assessor there, and we put together a pamphlet.
That was front and back.
Yep.
It was color, it was nice.
Oh, well, maybe they've
What
already
it
done
did-
that work, yeah.
My tax will go up to pay for that. No, just kidding. It was really nice.
I gotta read it later.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
I'll have to check my mailbox.
Yeah.
Yeah, both the county assessor and treasurer have been, you know, fantastic. They helped us with one of the conversations with the council on that property tax, and treasurer Jeff Gadman is a former city council member here, so it's, you know, nice to have, you know, that connection over at the county as well. So there's a lot of opportunity for partnerships and getting that info out into the public.
I think a lot of the departments, a lot of companies, et cetera, are gonna have to kind of look differently at the labor market. Because it used to be, you would get a lot of, I would imagine, a lot of applications for any job. And here we're talking about retention when they do come in and finding the good people. And I think that the cooperation and the partnering with the universities and colleges is gonna, you know, be super important in the high schools. And what does this community need from, you know, from its educational system? Or who are we gonna mentor and to become our employees?
Commissioner Clay, just a little bit more from what the city's doing on that. You know, I think the question of, hey, are we going out to the local colleges and building those relationships? Troy did mention we do have a couple of intern opportunities. A lot of them are in our engineering department. And we're certainly looking to expand that as we come out of the pandemic across different departments. So I know, for example, Public Affairs is looking at an intern here as well in the future, and there's other departments too. We are doing more outreach too in our local high schools, which, you know, Troy mentioned. So our human resources department is going to local high schools, giving a presentation on, you know, what the city does, you know, kind of very high level. And then also kind of, you know, providing life skills like resume writing, cover letter writing to get, you know, people more comfortable and familiar with those types of elements that they're going to be, you know, dealing with as they enter the job market.
It's great.
Yeah, John, Makita, you have anything? Questions, recommendations? Ideas?
No, but I got my tax thing too. It was really long, super intimidating. I had to snapshot it and send it to my husband. He knew what it looked like. But I did like your idea about the tutorial and help people like me figure out how to break it down. You never know that these youngsters out here that, you know, may be smart enough to go ahead and get a house while the market was good or while they're young, as opposed to an apartment, and they need to know these things. So I think that would be a good thing to do. I like that idea.
Yeah, because I've learned today that, you know, Lacey doesn't have a fire department, that it was totally separate. I never thought, it says Lacey Fire Department on the truck.
I see fire district.
Yeah, just, I didn't know that this, the taxes and stuff are collected separate. for that.
What about the one over by the food truck, the Lacey Fire Department there? Is that not a part of Lacey's fire district?
So Commissioner Hart, that is part of Lacey Fire District number 3, but the city, it's not a city service. It's its own district, its own taxing district.
Oh, wow, okay. Nice.
Well, thank you, Troy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's the first budget presentation I've been in where you don't know anything they're talking about, just throwing numbers at you, calculations and percentages.
Well, that's coming in November, Vice Chair
Yeah, I
Brown.
can certainly go there.
Part 2 is coming.
I'm pulling my hair out. That's very good. Thank you. Thanks.
So Troy, are you gonna lead us in a stretching session, 5-minute break in between?
Good. You need a little pick me up.
Go down to the gym, work out.
If you all would just give me 1 minute to get set up, and then we'll go into our next business item.
Thank you again for having me. I'm gonna go ahead.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Great meeting you.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you again.
Good. Next time I mess up with writing the check, I'll give you a call. Help you talk me through
See what I could do.
it.
Okay.
They don't teach the cursive writing anymore.
Nope.
They don't teach it.
I'm gonna teach my son all of that stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
My son wrote in cursive and somebody looked at him and was like, wow, you know how to write in cursive? I'm like, yeah, I do it in nice. They don't teach that in schools no more. So, but that
My,
teaches-
my cursive writing is so bad. I mean, you can't read it, but yeah. It's been terrible. I should have been a doctor.
That's my handwriting as well, Vice Chair Brown. In fact, I think I actually write better in cursive.
Yes.
So. All right, well, we'll move on to item B. That's all right, Vice Chair?
Yes, yes.
Fantastic. So we're going to be looking at our DEI strategic plan, and for the next couple of sessions, I'll be subbing in for Tevin as we kind of finish down the home stretch of getting these organized and then going back out to the community for feedback, which I'll provide a little bit of an overview as well. But I just wanted to point out that the Jamboard exercise is on the agenda, so you can find it. For those of you who are here, I've got some real Jamboards and we can jam old school.
Jolly
We've
tight.
got some pens as well. So if you want to pass those on, Vice Chair Brown, and we've got the board, so we'll put them on there eventually, and I'll make sure they get up onto the actual Jamboard so that everybody can see them as well. But what I really want to do for today's workshop is go over just kind of briefly a refresher of where we're at and where we're going and what we have done, just to kind of lay the context. And then really introduce and start the review of our next 2 focus areas. We've spent a couple of sessions, looking at our first 2, and I got a lot of really, really good feedback. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for providing that, and we'll certainly incorporate that, and it'll come back before this group for another kind of overview. But we wanted to move into the next 2 focus areas, which we have defined as policy, programs, and services. And specifically, this is city policies, programs, and services. So it's really looking at what do we provide the community, whether it's internal here at the city or external to, our community members, like Troy just mentioned, our utility community members, for example. And then the next one is livability. And this one's actually looking at how we connect and interact and interface with other, partner entities as well as community members themselves. So it's more looking externally on what momentum we can build collectively. So I
I just
will.
want to say, what a lot of work that you and your staff do to pull this together, to pull our little words and put them in here. I'm just so grateful for your work.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Clay. Appreciate that. So again, just to kind of set the context, and speaking of work, we've all done a lot of work, and it really shows, and we're going to continue to do that. And I think, timeline, hopefully, we'll really kind of start rounding out this project towards the end of the year, with the idea of going for, adoption sometime late 2022 or 2023. But as you can see, starting with box 1 in the left-hand corner, we really started with our community engagement sessions. And from that, we really built on our mission, our vision, our values. And so those drafts are included in tonight's packet, just as a refresher. We won't go over them. Certainly, if there's more feedback, we'll have another opportunity for that. But that took, quite a bit of work for us to start constructing that. And then, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we focused on workforce and work environment. And again, specifically looking at the city of Lacey's workforce and work environment. And then second, taking a look at community access and engagement. So really, how does the city reach out to community members, get their input, and integrate that into information that comes back to the city? So number 3 is where we are today. And like I mentioned, we're going to be focusing on 2 new focus areas, which are policy, programs, and services, and livability. After that, and today's not just going to be the only day that we review these. We'll certainly pick this up, next meeting as well. But after that, we're going to come back once we have those kind of solidified focus areas and strategies with our draft indicators and benchmarks. So we'll say, hey, here's what we think is possible, and here's how we can directly measure things. Just want to recognize that some things you can directly measure. And I'll give you an example of workforce and hiring. That is a pretty clear measurement. Other things we're going to have to come up with indirect measurements. And so, we'll have to kind of see if we got those right. And maybe we think we did now and we'll want to tweak them later, but those are things that we're going to constantly need to be taking a look at. But we will take a look at in more detail at draft indicators and benchmarks. Moving on to 5, we want to holistically look at kind of all of our drafts and get feedback on how we kind of sit as a draft at that point. And that'll be integrating all of the feedback, turning it into a draft into number 6, reviewing it with the Commission on Equity. And then moving on to number 7, once we have that draft from the Commission on Equity, coming back to our executive team here at the city and other key city staff and getting input and feedback on where we're at with that draft plan. From there, we'll take that going to box 8 and really review that with the Commission on Equity and integrate, some ideas and concepts. And then moving on to number 9, which is the box in the top right-hand corner, we want to take that draft back out to the greater community for engagement and additional feedback to see, did we capture this right? Or are there things that we kind of missed and need to take a deeper look into? Once we receive that feedback, we will again review it with this body. And then going down to box 11, we will bring a draft to the city council for their review. And with the idea, again, like I said earlier, hopefully that we'll have a plan moving forward for adoption sometime, late this year or early next year. So I just want to recognize we've done a lot of work. We still have some steps to go as we move through the plan itself. Any questions I can answer about kind of our roadmap moving forward? All right. So this is a little bit of a review, but I think it is helpful for anybody who might just be watching. But as far as kind of the structure of our draft strategic plan, we've crafted that vision, right? That overall, what do we want Lacey to become? The mission, how we're going to get there, and then the values, how we're going to operate to get there, what we want to operationalize. And then we get to our impact statements and our focus areas. So you can see here on the left-hand side is the goal focus area. And that's really kind of the broad, hey, here is the kind of confines we're working in. The impact statement is, kind of aligned with that vision of, hey, what do we want to look like? Where are we trying to achieve that meets our vision, mission, and values? And then we have within those strategies. So how we're going to go about accomplishing this particular impact statement within that focus area. And then eventually, like I mentioned, we'll get to those sample indicators and benchmarks. So these are how we are being accountable and how we're measuring our successes, or if we need to go back and reevaluate how we're doing certain things to move forward. So that's very high level, but that's what we're trying to get out of the diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan. And really what we've been focusing on for the last couple of sessions is what's highlighted in those blue squares, the three to the left. And again, it's the focus areas, the impact statements, and the strategies. So we get to move on to a new focus area. So we are going to take a look today at programs, our policies, programs, and services. And you can see right here, this focus area includes things that we've heard about our service delivery, our budgeting and policies, transportation and mobility. And I'm going to just point out a couple of things in transportation and mobility here in just a second. As well as infrastructure, which the infrastructure was a lot of times about utilities specifically, because a lot of other infrastructure was captured in our transportation or in parks. So parks also is something we'll take a look at, and we've heard comments about public safety and criminal justice. So those were kind of the visioning area elements that we incorporated into our policies, programs, and services. And our impact statement draft that we have here is: the city works to infuse diversity, equity, and inclusion into all city policies, projects, programs, and services. So we'll get to the Jamboard here in just a second, but first I just wanted to introduce everything, and then we'll kind of dissect this and get more feedback. So how did we pull all of that together? I mentioned our visioning. We've had our focus areas. We've had our Commission on Equity vision exercise. And so in the packet, you can see some of the statements and ideas that were expressed throughout those elements. And so, for example, I'm not going to read through everything. I promise we won't be here till 8:30, hopefully. But policy documents, you can see that there was, expressed that they wanted to have, the budget aligned with DEI efforts, to have it infused into all the areas of the city, to provide funding and resource to community groups that are aligned with, Lacey's DEI efforts, meeting service deliveries for gaps that there might be. So identifying where those are and, finding how we can really get those services to marginalized communities. For infrastructure, moving on to the second one, you can see that there was a lot of interest in improving our transportation options and accessibility to services, and really making transportation accessible across the community. And so some things that came up were improving, sidewalks, having ADA sidewalks, working with our public partners for public transportation access. So I said I made a note that we wanted to come back to, transportation. And one thing I just wanted to point out is the city doesn't run our public transportation. That's intercity transit. So they're a partner. And so that's somebody that we would need to collaborate on with to really help improve. We can help, provide infrastructure for, say more like buses or larger vans and vehicles, but the service itself is actually provided by intercity transit. Increasing public transportation, making it available for all community members, and then also increasing internet connectivity. And so one thing about internet connectivity I wanted to point out is the city is not a broadband utility provider. I'm sure you saw that with Troy's presentation. So this is again something that would be more of a partnership as we're looking at our policies, programs, and livability moving forward, rather than a direct service that the city provides.
So we'd have maybe subsidies or scholarship sort of plans for people to partnering with the providers.
That could be a
I think
potential.
this is super important thing, is the connectivity of all of our community.
And Commissioner Clay, other things too are, really, and we do a great job of this, of collaborating with our utility providers for when we are doing, capital improvements. And then also collaborating with them through the permitting process. And then as they're doing their own kind of investments into the community, kind of really helping out, saying, here's what we've identified and seen, how can we kind of help each other out?
Yeah.
So certainly, again, an important thing to look at, especially as we continue to move to a digital world. I mean, we're very much in one, but as Troy was mentioning, with nudging people to paying online, it's only going to increase, and more and more people are going to get off their telephones eventually for the landlines. So taking all of that into mind, we did craft a couple of draft strategies. So for kind of integrating the city policy comments, I've got draft strategy A, which is to integrate and reflect equity values in all policy documents. So for example, the budget, the comprehensive plan, et cetera. So like Troy just mentioned, from his perspective, the budget is the most important policy document. From our community and economic development director, the comprehensive plan is going to be the most important policy document. And so what this strategy is really saying is, hey, all of the important policy documents should include an equity lens and framework within them. Moving on to B, and again, we'll dissect these. I just want to introduce them. So we'll go in more detail and have a dialogue about them in just a second. Moving to B, we've got city services, and that is to provide services that are responsive, transparent, accountable, and welcoming, with an emphasis on providing a safe, trusted environment for vulnerable community members. So we can do this two ways. Would you like to move to the Jamboard just really quickly to dissect these first ones, or do you want me to introduce all of them first?
Let's introduce all of them first, and then we can just go back and forth. We can look at them.
Perfect, I can do that. So for public safety, some things that we heard were to reduce disproportionality in arrest and sentencing, to make more equal, uniform, and equitable, to ensure that our criminal justice system is free of bias and prejudice, racial profiling, discrimination, et cetera. To focus on restorative justice programs rather than retribution, and reducing recidivism. To make, filing complaints, concerns much more accessible for the public, helping provide support and programming for formerly incarcerated individuals, and creating a more equitable bail system. For parks and environment, we heard about increasing park and recreation access, particularly for people with disabilities, and making sure that they are able to access recreation activities, providing more green spaces in more places throughout the city. As they've, look at the developed environments, typically you find less green spaces in lower income communities. And then also offering scholarships, again, for that kind of accessibility for low income individuals, especially youth participants, so that they can be part of programming and play, which is important. So taking those into consideration, we crafted the following draft strategies. So for public safety, we've got public safety services, and again, we've got police. We also have emergency management services, and our court system for criminal justice, we don't provide those services. They're contract services, but still something that we can take a look at. So I put here contract court and public defender services to identify that that is something, that we again want infused through.
We don't have our own public defenders and, well, obviously, but would prosecuting attorney.
So we do have prosecuting attorneys in the city attorney's office. So that is one part of it. Yes. So that is something that we can, have greater control of when we're looking at what does the city directly have input into. And for contracts, obviously too, we are a contractor. So there is that degree of control as well, but we do contract for municipal court services and public defender services, which I know Raphael is getting a lot of information on here in the last couple of weeks, but those are contracted. So those services reflect the community, build trusting relationships, and eradicate systems that disproportionately negatively impact communities of color. Taking a look at our parks, culture, and recreation, providing robust and community-driven park and recreation resources where physical, financial, and social barriers are eliminated. Moving to infrastructure and utilities, some things that we heard were really enhancing our active transportation options, increasing access, increasing public transportation, which I've already mentioned, and ADA. This actually might have been a repeat, so we're just repeating that one, but that one we've already gone through. I think the additional ones were really taking a look at our own city utilities, which again, as Troy mentioned, we do have 4 city utilities that provide services. So, looking at sewer, water, wastewater, stormwater, those types of services. So I'll move down to the next portion, which is acknowledgements and events. Some ideas we've heard are land acknowledgements and recognitions, continuing to foster opportunities for community engagement through our programming, such as music in the parks, cultural celebrations, encouraging our art program and really showing that through our budgets, supporting the museum and enhancing other visual arts throughout the community. So connected to that, we've got infrastructure. So again, taking a look at, the infrastructure that we build specifically first. So continue to increase equity across transportation modes and ensure all city facilities and other public assets are accessible and welcoming. So just to unpack public assets here a little bit more, transportation obviously is talking about our roadways, our sidewalks, et cetera, trails. When we talk about city facility and other public assets, these are our buildings, but also public spaces, through the community that we might have. For utilities, continue to provide affordable, essential city utilities. And again, going to the fact that we don't provide all of the utilities, collaborate with external providers to enhance services in the communities. For an equity tool, implement an equity framework to help guide policy decisions. This is something where I didn't actually have kind of the comments that we had because we previously had it under accountability and measurements, but there was a desire to have something that helps frame, the work that we're doing as we move forward, and then also something to help assess, what kind of work we're seeing and any progress in the community. For acknowledgement at events, recognize and support community diversity through acknowledgement statements, public art, events, and programs. So with that, we'll jump into the first Jamboard. So Raphael, if you could hit, actually I got stop share. I can stop the share and I will reshare it. We'll go into the first Jamboard. So very similar to what we did previously, we just want to know first, when we're taking a look just broadly at our focus area and our, we'll get to the impact statement. So really just focus on this focus area. Is there anything missing from, what you've experienced and what you've read as part of the Commission on Equity that should be integrated into policies, programs, and services?
Hmm. That's like,
You're talking about all of those things on the very left, right?
Yeah, great question, Vice Chair. So yeah, we're talking, again, all of those broad categories that we looked into, and now we've kind of funneled that into that focus area of policies, programs, and services. Was there something that you think, maybe we're missing, like a city service that should be integrated in there?
Well, the acknowledgements and events, I mean, the programs, it's in the parks department. Really, our music in the park or our celebrations, that kind of is taken care of by the parks or. Yeah, I mean, it's a service, so I think that's fine because we have it in the
Yeah,
strategy.
that's pretty comprehensive. That's a lot. Categories.
what was
That's you in there.
what was the service delivery again? What does that encompass, the service delivery?
Yeah, great question, Commissioner Hart. So that's how we provide our internal and external services to the community. So, for example, internally, Troy's a really good kind of internal based service. So he's got finance and IS. They don't really provide a whole lot of external services outside of utility billing. So, looking at how they're providing services, does it have diversity, equity, and inclusion integrated into those services? Looking to more externally facing service delivery, you know, how we provide utility billing is a great example. So we provide our utilities and our utility billing service. And you know, one of the things that Troy just mentioned really enhancing is that language translation services. So making sure that what we provide out to the community is accessible, you know, in the means that they want to receive it and in the language that they want to receive it. So really, you know, making sure that the services we are providing to community members are part of that policy programs and services. Hope that's-
Okay,
How it's delivered.
looks pretty complete. I mean, parks kind of takes care of all of the other stuff.
And something doesn't have to be missing too. We can say, hey, this one's a good one. We can move on. No,
Mhm.
no need to belabor it. But certainly the
That's
jam boards
true.
are gonna be up too for a period of time. So if there is something that you're like, oh, wait, hold on.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, and later on, we may catch something later on. I mean, it's a living document, so it may come up later, but for right now, I'm not seeing anything.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then we will move on and we'll take a look at the impact statement. So the impact statement, again, being the city works to infuse diversity, equity, and inclusion into all city policies, projects, programs, and services.
Well, the thing that jumped out to me was the use of the word infuse.
Mhm.
It seemed kind of strong. And then later on, as you were going through slides, you used the word integrate.
Mm,
I like that term better
mhm.
than infuse. Okay. So, you know, infuse is like you're forcing it. To me, it seems, you know, you're squeezing it in there. You know, whereas integrate, oh, you looked at a plan and how it fits and how it works well, does it work? You've gone through some consideration. Infuse is, here it is, let's put a statement in about diversity, you know, let's do this, and versus you know, doing some collaboration and then adding it in where it makes sense and how it makes sense.
Mm,
That's
good point.
It's interesting. My take on infuse is that it more organically happens. We want it to organically happen, that all of our policies have that lens, have that naturally everybody's looking for to be sure that the diversity is there. Integration is a little bit, you know, let's integrate the schools. Let's take these people and make them go here and these, so for me, I have the opposite of reaction.
But we're talking policies though, you know, from that standpoint, you know, it's like, and when you look at, you know, D&I, every organization, they hire people to give them language to put into their policies. Okay, but did they have an infrastructure to do anything with that? It's there, that's the defense in court. We said it, it's in our policy, but you have nothing to make it work. Whereas integration, you've taken some time, you've taken internal, external, you know, people to work through it and say, this fits our organization. See, and this can work with our organization. We can support that. That's my view of it. Yeah.
So how would the body feel about the city works to integrate and infuse to allow the framework and the organic process?
That's much, a bit much.
I was looking up the definition of infuse, so.
What does it say? I turned my phone off.
Okay, so infuse comes off as one to fill or pervade. And also to soak. So I will focus on the first term there. So as an example, her work is infused with an anger born of pain and oppression. So it's a feeling type of in sense there. So fill and pervade. So it does come off a bit more strongly.
Yeah, and then integrate, what's the definition of
So
integrate?
integrate
Oh,
All right, so integrate is more combine one thing with another so that they become a whole. Or
I rest my case.
Yeah, that's.
Right, so I'm hearing integrate.
the other one too, it is bring people or groups with particular characteristics or needs into equal participation in or membership of a social group or institution.
All right.
I rest my case.
Yeah.
Can I leave, man?
No.
Oh.
We got a few more of these. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns, ideas?
Have none on that, on the statement now.
Great. We'll move on, and again, we'll have time to come back to all of these, so. So we'll move to the first two items on here, which are our city policies and city services. I know it's kind of small, so I'm just gonna make that a little bit larger for everybody in.
There we go.
there's your word, Cliff. Integrate.
Yeah. Where does homelessness come in? How do we, which area do we work on homelessness?
Excellent question, Vice Chair. And so you'll find that we have a statement under livability that addresses homelessness. And the reason for that, again, is we can provide, funding and some services, but we really need a network with the federal government, the state, and local nonprofits in that area.
What about, not low income housing, but maybe more affordable housing?
Yeah, no, that's also another great question, Commissioner Hart, and we'll see that in livability as well. And for the same exact reasons that, we can control kind of like land use policies and, some, incentives. But ultimately, we need partners to really help construct affordable housing and other types of housing across the spectrum.
Mm.
So what about the services? I made a note here about a video series on like winter preparation, summer preparation, watering. What does that fall? That kind of stuff. If we're gonna educate people on that, like, oh, the weather's changing,
Yeah.
Here's some things to consider, or, oh, now it's hot, getting hot. Those types of things. Which one of these does that fall under?
I think that would be a combination of city services and then also going back out to community outreach and engagement, which we've reviewed previously. So,
Okay.
I'll use your example of weatherization. The city plows the streets and when there's a snow or ice incident, right?
Mhm.
So getting messaging out kind of about being prepared for that would be part of, responsive and transparent services. And then it would fall under the, community engagement and outreach of, really connecting with the community and providing information.
Kind of snowmobile your car off the street. Plow can't come in.
I have a garage, so.
Yeah. Good.
All right.
I have something on the city services, and in the draft. Where was this, talked about the aspects of service delivery and, to serve marginalized communities. Is there something that we could put in this, services provided, responsive, and transparent, about identifying the marginalized communities, identify and it seems like it would be stronger if we say that we're how we're gonna find these
Yep.
vulnerable community members. or identify and serve. And I don't know about vulnerable either, that word. Services are responsive.
You know, and Commissioner Clay, just looking ahead to the strategy on an equity tool, maybe that needs to be expanded to talk about, you know, identifying gaps.
Oh,
Maybe that would
to
be,
be used in other.
right, because the way it reads right now is just to implement a tool to help guide policy decisions.
Mm.
But maybe we need to talk about, you know, crafting that and finding gaps and then implementing it.
Mhm.
Can you give us a little bit more perspective on the term vulnerability and if there's other terms that you think would be a better fit in this scenario?
Well, underserved is always used.
Which one?
Underserved, the vulnerable. Considered valid, it doesn't, it feels like disempowering somebody to say, to point out how vulnerable they are. Is that? I don't know, it might be just taking this too personal, but,
I don't know what's the term you use for like low income, low education, that combination. People
Mhm.
have the greatest challenge. Do we have a term, a phrase that is commonly used?
Yeah. I don't know, anybody have any other input about that? It's a little paternalistic or something, it feels like it takes people's power away a little bit. And that we're the city, we're gonna go out and look for people can't take care of themselves. Basically, we're the city and we're wanting to see where we're not doing a good job of supporting people. So see the kind of difference there?
Yeah, we can take a look into the term and come back with a couple of other suggestions that might be better. Yeah.
You've been waiting.
I get to do that. That was really
You've
fun.
been waiting.
Bouncing around.
All right, well, again, these will be up for a bit so we can, you know, provide more feedback, but to keep us moving forward. So looking at public safety and parks and culture and recreation.
Yes. My question is, how does a city, like Lacey, look at the challenge of jail and incarceration versus counseling and community resources, bringing them to bear on people who are, you know, committing crimes, repeatedly committing crimes, many of which are nonviolent. So that is the whole argument now. What do you do with the nonviolent offenders? We're arresting them, give them a court date and let them go. And while they're out there, they do 3 more crimes. You know, what do you do? But as a homeowner, someone breaks in my car and that person's processed and they let go. I'm not happy. It costs me money, my insurance deductible. So where's that argument? How does the city bridge that gap, find that happy medium? Do we have a policy to say, you know, here's what we do and here's what we don't do. Here's how we handle it. Here's what we don't do. That would be, I guess, from the prosecutor's philosophy. Is it changing? You know, do we have resources to support, you know, a more lenient philosophy or more stringent philosophy?
So Vice Chair Brown, that's a good question. One thing I was gonna bring as part of my director update is that our next presentation is going to be the city attorney's office. So that will be an excellent question to, you know, store in the brain bank and ask the city attorney.
I would
Okay.
put a serious note on that
Yeah.
as something that you want to ask city attorney.
Because that's all I hear on the news.
Service.
5 o'clock news.
But a couple of things just to add on to that is number one, again, we don't have a jail and we don't provide jail services. So we contract those services out. So part of the answer to your question is going to depend on, you know, the jails and what they're taking at any given time. But then in addition, on the other side of that, we have invested in programs such as mental health court that, you know, are diversion programs to help individuals, you know, get the resources that they need. So all of that is to say, more information at our next Commission on Equity meeting will be coming on that topic.
Lacey may be doing it well, but a lot of cities are not.
I think towards the end, building trust relationships and eradicating systems that disproportionately negatively impact communities of color and low income. I'd like to add low income in there. I'm particularly interested in this, the bail system where you have somebody who is low income, and then they're in jail, and then they can't pay their child support. And then when they get out, they have a huge bill on that line, and they lose their job. There's a lot of things that even though we don't have a jail, our community members are going to jail. And so I think that the issue of being low income, and I mean, it's disproportionately negative impact on low income people, because if you have money, then you can just put a huge bail out and go back to your job. But so I'd like to add low income and people and communities of color.
Yeah, you can make jail bail, but you may not go back to a job, depending on what the crime was. So if we don't have a jail here, do they offer community service, something where they can kind of give back?
So Commissioner Hart, yes, there have been programs previously through the municipal court and then also through the city. I know a lot of those programs, though, had also been disrupted because of COVID. And so that's an excellent question that I can follow up with and get some more information on what's currently provided. So more information on that will be coming.
And do you guys work with like what used to be homeless backpacks? I know we have Our Arc that does the homeless street youth. It's an entrepreneur friend that I know that he's trying to get stuff like that out. It's not anything that's super big. It's very grassroots. So I know you guys contract out with different places. How do you find out about some of these things that you contract out besides the big, you know, hey, we want to contract out with, you know, this, that, or the other? How do you find those?
Commissioner Hart, can you give me a little bit more information on kind of the services on contracting out that you're referring to?
Well, like I'm sure you guys contract out with I wouldn't know what places exactly, but just if somebody is in jail and is in trouble, and maybe they would contract out to some place that would, I don't know if you contract out with people that pick up the trash on the side of the road. I mean, I don't know what type of places, but do you ever look at more grassroots type of services where they're more so giving back, like something like Our Arc, where they would maybe help a business owner who has to get kids off the street?
So Commissioner Hart, I kind of lost you in the last couple of sentences, but to go back to, I guess, the community service oriented programs, a lot of those have been either city or municipal court led, which is through Thurston County. So I'll follow up with some more information on what those programs were, but they were, to my understanding, kind of internal based. So they were led by the court systems, and then they provide services through several nonprofits at the Justice Center as well. But let me get a little bit more information on that. And I know we are going to talk specifically about more human service contracting and under livability. And there are a bunch of contracts that we do there. So we can unpack those contracts in a little bit, but let me get some more information for you.
And there are a lot of good nonprofits that that maybe the police officers know and sort of, can tell people about, like our art, or we have a
Or United Way or something like
Yeah,
that.
community
response.
resource officers, yep,
Yeah.
yep, and they're out in the community and really they're trying to find, solutions, to issues that they're seeing.
With the nonprofits that are
Yep.
going, yeah.
All right, and we'll move on. And we've got infrastructure and utilities. And again, with infrastructure, we're talking about our transportation and city facilities and other public assets. So making sure that they are accessible and welcoming. And then with utilities, looking what we provide, and then also looking to collaborate with external providers, which as I previously mentioned, include, broadband access, cable, et cetera.
So who determines when to extend a bus route or create a new bus route? You have inner city transit that does it, but do they decide on, determine the routes based on ridership or potential? There's a study or something?
Yep. There's a study and we have representatives, on kind of a committee for inner city transit, but yes, they will do those types of transportation studies on, what they anticipate for ridership in underserved areas and what they have, funding for.
Yeah. So I used to, in my past life, before I started doing what I was doing now, I worked for the federal government on JBLM. I work kind of closely with inner city transit. And the one thing that I don't see, a couple of things, intercity transit and working together with Pierce Transit, because we do have a lot of people that live down here that work up north. They've got a very good program as far as like the ride share, the van pool program. But for individuals who have disabilities, I know that they do have a dial-a-lift, but they don't have something, because with dial-a-lift, you have to have a doctor that kind of helps you out with their eligibility. If you don't have that, you're just kind of stuck. So kind of in my situation, and I can speak to this personally, where I have a disabled child that works on in Pierce County, has no way to get to work unless me or his dad drives him back and forth every day, and his hours are very, fluid from week to week. So that happens to be an issue. He has no problem getting around within Thurston County. But if you live in Thurston County and you just happen to work in another county where your hours aren't guaranteed week to week, your days aren't guaranteed week to week, day to day, how does that work for somebody who's more of a floater? Then Dial-a-Lift doesn't work, Uber and Lyft doesn't work. And I think that right there is where a little bit of a breakdown might be.
Yeah, and you know, and again, kind of going to, you know, we're collaborators in those instances, right? So talking about, you know, what needs are in our community and keeping those conversations open and those dialogues, you know, moving forward is really, you know, what we can do as a partner, because it is not a
Mhm.
service we directly control.
We can inform them of these concerns, but
Exactly.
they're the service provider at the end of the day. And
Mhm.
we can talk to them about potential collaboration or, you know, communication they can have with Pierce County.
Mhm.
That's something that we would be more informational about. They would have to take the initiative and
Mhm.
make that collaboration occur with Pierce County
Oh,
for
yeah.
the benefit of the community down
Oh,
here.
yeah. Yeah, and I really tried, you know, being the person that was dealing mostly with military, contractor and civilians. It's all good, it's all gravy, but when you're dealing with somebody with a special need, it's not really there. So
Yeah. And our equity tool and
It's 16. The buses didn't come to my neighborhood, so we all had to buy cars. 16.
yeah. And there are some neighborhoods within Thurston County, you know, some of the industrial areas.
You ran everywhere.
It's only when the dogs were chasing.
Anything else on infrastructure and utilities? All right, well, we will move on now to our last two items, and we've already heard one comment about the equity tool, so we'll make a note of that, of incorporating, you know, finding the gaps as part of that tool as well.
What was that again?
Something to the effect of finding gaps to services. You can fine tune that.
pockets of.
Yeah, because I'm sure in city of Lacey, where there's like low income, I'm sure those areas are real small little groups, but you have low income people spread out.
Mm.
And so is there a program or something that identifies those people? So you have, you know, a lot of red dots here, some red dots there, one here, one there. And then have outreach, you know, to those people who may live just outside of a very nice community. It's like, I know, you know, areas where beautiful neighborhood, but long-term homeowners, landowners are next door. And they may have a very small manufactured home there. And they could very well be low income, but they own that land. You know, so would that person be identified and outreach? You know, there would be some outreach to people like that. It's like just across from, you know, River Ridge High School, in that little area right down there. You know, where are they on the map? Is there outreach to that group that lives in those little tiny apartments there? Yeah.
Yeah, I think on the equity tool, we need to say why we want the tool. So implement an equity framework tool to help guide in identifying and serving marginalized
Okay.
people and marginalized community members within our policy decisions.
Rafael, let's add identifying and serving marginalized community members, and we'll build off of it.
Include seniors.
And then the clearer that is, then our partners will say, oh, that's right, they have that tool, I'm gonna use that too.
Great feedback. Anything on acknowledgement and events?
Some more diverse events. You know, during the summer, yeah, we've got the family friendly and the kid friendly things. We have a lot of country stuff that goes out. I'm not a huge fan of country. I've got nothing against it, but if we can get maybe some pop events, maybe some R&B in there. That'd be nice. But that's just me.
And that's certainly, something that's, recognizing and support community diversity through acknowledgement. So yeah, to your point, Commissioner Hart, really making sure that the events and programming showcase a diversity of voices.
Does the city have a recognition program, say, for a community, say, African-American community? We salute your businesses, which include, this place, the barber shop, these and that, a list of them with all their contacts and link to this. Oh, the Vietnamese community, gosh, these things, and highlighting them. You could do that in the newsletter that goes into them. The thing, or, somehow just highlighting various communities, which is a great marketing piece for those businesses.
Yeah, so a business showcase sounds like
There you go.
what we're talking about, and that is something that our Community and Economic Development Department has started, but I think picking that up, yes, would be make a note of. That's a great thing.
Mhm.
I know there is the business directory that I helped found. South Sound BIPOC is one that's kind of starting to put something like that together because working with the Thurston County Chamber. It does a broad area, so it's not just Thurston County, but it is runs from Seattle all the way down to Centralia, but it started right here in Thurston County. So that might be something where somebody can kind of collaborate with that program.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good, I've looked at that website. I've used it a number of times.
Yeah, and it's
That's-
absolutely free, so.
Commissioner Hart, that's something we, again, as a partner and an advocate, that we also have on our Community and Economic Development page, so people can access that directory, and then also something that we have sent out as part of our economic development communications in the past.
Yes.
All right, anything else? All right, well, we've made it through the first focus area and we've gotten some really good feedback. So we'll certainly look forward to incorporating or integrating that feedback, certainly not infusing though.
Right, we went to the dictionary, we used our dictionary tonight, electronic dictionary.
Well, so let's move into our next focus area. Let me actually, can you exit out of that? Just the hidden escape. I forgot to share my screen. So we are going to move into a category, focus area that we are calling livability. And so within livability, we have taken the broader concepts of environment, partnerships, social services. And social services is something I've heard brought up a couple of times previously. Individual and family supports. Housing to include, individuals who are houseless as well as affordable housing, other essential life activities and economic opportunities. And we've taken all of those and we put it into a category called livability to really reflect that all of those things, kind of take part into creating a good, high quality life. And so for the focus area of livability, the draft impact statement is the city provides and assists. Again, this is where we can be partners and advocates with advancing equitable economic opportunities, a diversity of housing and human services, and a healthy environment for all. So just like the last time, I'll go through the whole thing and then we'll jump onto the Jamboard. So some things that we heard as far as economic development was, providing living wage for everyone, really helping support and promote startup businesses from minority community members, increasing access to jobs and career advancements, hiring locally. And also, to the point about high schools and colleges, providing training for individuals in high school and colleges. For contracting, we've talked about this on a couple of occasions, with Public Works, as well as here tonight with Troy. But some feedback we've heard so far is hiring, local contractors when possible, providing information on contracting and the procurement process to marginalized communities, engaging our BIPOC and women-owned businesses to participate in those contracts, and really monitoring and encouraging, more diversity within city projects and services. So taking that information, we crafted some draft strategies. And so for economic development, we have support and enhance community workforce education, training, and entrepreneurship opportunities that reduce wealth inequities, support underserved communities, and ensure living wages. For contracting, we have raise awareness of contracting and procurement process to increase opportunities for minority and women-owned businesses. For human and social services, we heard about providing inclusive social services, improving access to behavioral and mental health, improving access to basic necessities such food, housing, and creating a more comprehensive social services safety net across the community, developing a comprehensive plan to address houseless populations, and to identify, DEI as, something to integrate into who we provide social services to. And hearing from the public too on what types of social services and human services are necessary and needed. For the environment, we heard about improving the environment, removing the plastic, and working with vendors to be more environmentally friendly. Partnerships, and I'm going to move this again. This is very exciting. Let's go back. I know I messed it up. Doing so well. For partnerships, we heard really about building and collaborating with our local partners. So the library, the North Thurston School District, other local entities, businesses, foster care providers. One thing I just want to point out is the city does not provide foster care services. So this is again kind of more of a collaborate, advocate. Reaching out to more individuals and getting feedback, and working with community partners to holistically approach diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts in the community. So based on some of the feedback, we've come up with some draft strategies for housing and homelessness to support efforts to increase home ownership and reduce displacement, and continue to implement enhanced affordable housing and homeless services with community providers. For social services, provide and support social services that meet the needs of the Lacey community. Partnerships, coordinate and collaborate with local schools, government entities, nonprofit groups, and other community stakeholders to advance equity comprehensively in the community. And for environments, to continue to provide and support actions that enhance the natural environment and eliminate environmental health disparities so that all have the opportunity to achieve their full health potential. And we will go back to the Jamboards. That's not it. So again, just kind of zooming out to the highest level of looking at what's been packed into livability. Do you all feel like there's something that we maybe missed or should look into in more detail?
Just minor, it's individual and family support. Needs to be a little and comma.
I don't see anything that's missing now. That I can
All right, we will move on. Now we're looking at the impact statement. So the impact statement again being the city provides and assists with advancing equitable economic opportunities, a diversity of housing and human services, and a healthy environment for all.
I really like livability. That's great.
Should we say green and healthy? How does the city have a green program? I mean, that's the term everybody uses now, green. So a healthy environment, does that incorporate being green?
And by green, Vice Chair, I imagine you mean about sustainable, right? And maybe that's,
You know, I'm saying, not using fossil fuels and the lighting you use and having city buying vehicles that are electric, all of that program.
Yeah.
A green program.
I like the word sustainability, putting that takes care of.
I think if you say sustainability to a St. Martin student, they'll know what you're talking about. You said, we have a green program. They're like, "Oh, yes, got it."
A healthy and green environment.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a separate sentence, where you say green or separate. No, if you separate those two, but you know, I'm just looking at, you know, what's current, what's now,
Yeah.
in future, everything is like green, like climate pledge arena. You know? And I saw where Lacey's, when I was reading through stuff, is doing electric, what do you call those, what, charging stations, things like that. That's all like green stuff. Yeah, okay.
Stations like that.
Yeah. Recycling, all of that stuff, yeah.
Don't get me started on those folks.
Ms. Makita. Can you speak up? We can't hear you, Makita.
Oh, sorry, I was like, oh, the recycling people, don't get me started on those folks. I've been recycling, but now you can't put your glass in with, just like, oh my Lord. Yeah, I'm a
I
little.
just want to
frustrated.
point out, like Troy highlighted today, that is also a contracted service. The city
Oh,
does
yeah.
not provide that utility.
Nope.
Yeah.
No, they do not. They got my email though. I got an email nastygram from them about my one glass bottle in with the recycling.
All right, so moving on to the draft strategies for economic development and contracting specifically. So, you know, really looking for ways, you know, that we can support, but also to collaborate through enhancements in the community. And for contracting, it's really about raising awareness of the programs. As, you know, we've talked about, you know, in past conversations, there are very prescriptive ways we have to go about our contracting per state law. And so really, you know, advocating for individuals to join those master contracts, to be part of, you know, the RFP processes and to remove barriers to those processes are things that we can really help control.
Yeah, I signed up for that program, but then the only other thing about that too is, what if somebody's is a minority or woman owned, but maybe they don't have a service that would, they want to work with the state or the government, but maybe their product is something that would be picked up on a contract. So knowing whether that's the best thing for your business or not. But yeah, a lot of that seems like it is a well-kept secret. So.
It's not much, I don't think you can, much tweaking you can do to that because it is so highly regulated. Like you said, you have to follow the state, you know. I don't know if that's RCW or whatever it is, but yeah. And you're working in, well, dealing with Pierce County a lot with all of the construction, the various communities, that's just, I've sat in on so many briefings on, you know, how do you identify the contractors using been following all the laws and all of the developers coming in, what they do and people, the community pushing them to make sure they follow the rules and to provide contractors and subcontractors to them to be a part, to fall under the general contractor. Because many of, you have to be bonded and all those types of requirement. And small businesses may not be able to afford to be bonded. You know, they may be licensed, but not bonded. So they go with a general contractor, then they can provide services underneath them. And I was thinking with Lacey that you'd have to go outside of the city a lot, you know, into the county, and then probably outside of the county to get to the minority and women-owned businesses and to do some of these contracts. I think it was probably too small to have a lot to draw from.
Am I thinking the actual contracting that comes under the policies, programs and services, some of that in the public works, the infrastructure, utilities. So this piece of contracting is about economic opportunities. So we maybe have dealt with some of the how the city gets its contracts or makes its contract, and this is more about being sure that we're hiring local as much as we can, or we're having opportunities for people to get better jobs through what we do have control over. So
Okay, Commissioner Clay, I think what you're pointing to is that one could fit into the programs, policies and services, right? And, you know, certainly several of the other ones that we're about to take a look at, such as, you know, social services and affordable housing, there are elements that, yes, it's a city led, but it's also kind of, again, when can we be partners and advocates? So I think to your point, that could fit under programs, city services, but really kind of trying to tie that to economic development and reaching out and, you know, removing barriers and getting information out there to the community.
And a lot of that is free training too. That's offered through the OMWDE for the regional side of it. So they do hold some training periodically through the year, which is how I got certified. So a lot of it, you got to go through that certification process first before you can even get to that next step.
Yeah, Commissioner Hart, that's a great point. And that's where we can really be collaborators on raising awareness, right? So what kind of programs are out there, you know, through the state, through workforce development programs, et cetera.
It would go through the EDC, honestly, and through PTAC would be your partnership.
All right, so move on to the next ones. So we've got housing and homeless services. And so really the idea of increasing home ownership, reducing displacement, and then continuing to implement and enhance our affordable housing and homeless services with community partners. So just a little bit of background on this, the city has an affordable housing plan. And so really kind of stressing the implementation of that plan in the community. And as we've talked about with the other statements we've had, or strategies we've had previously, in the future, integrating, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion, you know, stronger into those plans. And then for homeless services and housing services, the city does, you know, provide funding for contract services to a lot of different entities. And so, you know, continuing to enhance those types of services and contracts throughout the community.
Hmm.
Gosh, I would be very interested in seeing the affordable housing plan because yeah, where? Because, you know, as I ride around Lacey and I see all these beautiful apartments being built and they're rented out, they're renting them before they finish building them. And the homes, they put, you know, they put a sold sign in the gravel.
Mm.
So I'm just wondering, where is the affordable housing? You know, what does it look like? I don't know if Lacey, federal grants, they say, oh, you have to have a mixture. And they have Habitat for Humanity and those types of things. Is that a part of it? Habitat for Humanity homes and all that? I would be very interested in seeing
Yeah,
that piece.
Vice Chair Brown, we can certainly bring members of Community and Economic Development for another presentation specifically on the affordable housing plan, and I'll make sure to send that out to you all
Yeah.
after this meeting so that you can take a look at it before that. But to your point, you know, again, there are things that the city can lead, partner, and advocate, and within that realm, that's true as well. We do work with community partners like Habitat for Humanity. We are just finishing up they're just finishing up a development that we really helped, and one of our city policies is to waive certain development fees for affordable housing. And that started first with Habitat for Humanity, and now the council has gone back and done that for any, you know, affordable housing. So not just Habitat for Humanity, but those are the types of, you know, policies that are looked at as part of that affordable housing plan. So we can certainly do a deeper dive into that at a future
Yeah.
Commission on Equity.
Yeah,
meeting.
that's right around the community, you shake your head, oh my God. Right up on my house a long time ago. You know, but people like Raphael, you know.
I'm glad I bought my house when I did, literally just in the nick of time.
All right, well, we'll keep that open, and certainly again, the jam boards will be up. So please, if you have additional things. So the last two that we have are partnerships. So really, you know, talking about coordinating, collaborating, and complementing comprehensively across the community. So knowing that, you know, we don't control everything and that we really need to work holistically with partners to create a more equitable environment. Then environmental, we've heard about incorporating something to the effect of green and sustainable into that, but also again, taking a look at the natural environment, but also environmental health disparities, which, you know, Vice Chair Brown, you had mentioned, you know, places like nearby roads and how that impacts, you know, the environment, but also impacts people. And that's really what it's getting at with environmental disparities.
Should put trees in capital letters and highlight it, because I was on a focus group the other day and there was someone on there she's a senior and she's very low income, but she's talking about, if you save these trees, you stop cutting the trees down. She got on the tree rant, you know?
Mm.
So that's important, you know, to them. So boy, trees.
A comment of
Oh,
true-
yeah, I think it is too. I mean, think of the livestock. I mean, I got hit by a deer just last Monday, totaled my car, but it was right over in my neighborhood where we are building apartments and there's no trees there, and something spooked that deer and it came running out in front of my car.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, with all the construction in my area, it's been like 3 years, but now we have deer walking on sidewalks again through the community,
Yep.
being displaced. Yep.
Yes.
I have a couple things, in partnership. I think that would be a good place to put, coordinate and collaborate with local schools, government entities, tribal governments. To spell it out, tribal governments.
Great.
Nonprofits. And then on the environment, continues to provide and support actions that I would say protect, enhance, and restore our natural environment.
Yeah, that climate change.
Yeah. We need. Enhance it,
I would think we would contract with or just have as consultant, someone from, you know, the tribes that talk about how they do it, you know, and the passion would help us to make some good and better and different decisions. You know, I was down fishing on the Squally River and I was talking to a native person, oh my God, the way they view things and look at it, all you go, gosh, that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, there's a passion there. Without them being involved, I would think,
Yeah. There's a lot of wisdom.
yeah, it's just amazing to hear their,
Yeah.
must have been their thought process.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Clay, for making sure that they're included in the partnerships.
Mhm.
We have a great partnership with
Yeah.
the Nisqually tribe,
Yeah.
and we want to make sure it's
Yeah, so
reflected.
they're
in
at the
this.
table and then that makes a difference, I think. It strengthens what you're trying to do.
All right, well, we have made it through the workshop for today. The jam boards, like I mentioned, are gonna be up. I'll send you kind of a timeline for when we plan on taking them down. So again, if you have feedback over the next couple of days and maybe a week and a half or so, please put it up there. But I really appreciate all of your thoughts tonight. So thank you so much for that.
Great. Do we have the commissioner reports? Any of the commissioners have a report?
Got nothing.
Makita, you had something?
Nope, I have nothing.
Okay, John? No? Okay, Annie, did you?
I have a question about when we will get the flag policy back.
That's great. That's actually another one of my director reports. So I will get to that, or I can answer it right now. Commissioner Clay, what would you prefer?
Wait.
So, okay, so no commissioner report, so we'll move to the director's report.
All right, well, like I already mentioned, we are gonna have the city attorney's office at our next Commission on Equity for the city's presentation. So expect to meet Dave Snyder next meeting in September. For the flag policy will be going before the Lacey City Council for the work session on September 8th. And then it would move forward for consideration for adoption on September 15th if they elect to move forward with it. So coming up pretty soon. Another update, the communications plan, which I know you all reviewed and helped provide some good comments and feedback on, was adopted by the Lacey City Council at the last city council meeting on August 18th. So we do have a finalized communications plan, and I'll send that out to all of you as part of our email follow-up. I got two more items, but for these two items, I'm going to turn it over to the subject matter experts, and that's Rafael Fernandez, our management analyst. And the first one is just an update on our Lacey Youth Council and what we're looking to do. And then the second one is going to be a Juneteenth after action report. And so with that, I will turn it over to Rafael Fernandez.
Can't believe I missed that. It was canceled like 3 times and then the one time I didn't look at my email, it happened.
Well, firstly, in terms of the Lacey Youth Council, so actually, on the 24th, Wednesday, the Lacey Youth Council, these will come here for the first time. We're all going to get together in terms of myself, Kelly Adams, Shannon, and the city manager, formally introduce the Lacey Youth Council for the upcoming year. And we're essentially going to have an orientation day. So that orientation day, again, on the 24th, it'll go from 12 to 5, where they'll be seated right here where you are. And we're going to go through a various outline in terms of, let's see, welcome and introductions, give them a City of Lacey overview, give them a brief tour of City Hall itself to include the police department as well. And then also cover some roles and responsibilities in terms of what is to be expected of them as a youth council appointee. And then give them a brief description of Robert's Rules of Order. And that'll end with wrapping up with a questionnaire, just entertain some of the general questions and guidelines that they may have, and then moving forward into the new school year for them. So again, that'll be this upcoming Wednesday from 12 to 5 right here at City Hall. And
Raphael, what about liaisons to advisory boards?
so that will be, again, this is the orientation, so we're gonna introduce them to all the advisory boards that are present, to include the Commission on Equity as well. And then just briefly go over what the process will be in terms of how they can choose to be on an advisory board, and also the voting process that'll come to that. So we have a total of 14 appointees that'll be joining the Lacey Youth Council for this upcoming year. So in terms of every advisory board, there should be a representative for them. But yeah, they will go through the formal process of understanding which each advisory board, what it is, all their brief details of that board, and then that voting process will take place.
Are these 14 new members, or do we have any returning?
We have returning members, so we have, it is actually half and half across the board. We have 7 returning members and we have 7 new members.
Yeah, I miss our member.
Pretty soon. Pretty soon. So I anticipate that there will be, for this committee, there will be a member in place at the earliest mid-September, definitely by October. Sure. Okay. In terms of the 41st Juneteenth celebration event after action review, so the Fred U. Harris Masonic Lodge hosted the 41st edition of the Juneteenth celebration at the RAC in Lacey on June 18th. In partnership with the Fred U. Harris Lodge, the city of Lacey supported the 41st Juneteenth celebration with video and print promotional resources, event hosting resources, and as a vendor with the city of Lacey recruitment booth, further promoting the lodge, the city of Lacey Commission on Equity, and available employment within the city of Lacey Parks, Culture, and Recreation Department, and also upcoming opportunities with the Lacey Youth Council and the City of Lacey Police Explorers Program. An after action review for the event was conducted and held on August, what was that? Today's the 22nd. So on the 18th, to review, highlight, and debrief what actually happened within the event planning, what actually took place during the event itself, and how future activities could be done better by the participants and those responsible for the event through heightened collaboration. When speaking on what was supposed to happen, it was clear that the main intentions from the perspectives of the lodge was to take care of the community, educate the community on the nuances of the Juneteenth holiday, and feed the community as well. From these perspectives, the event fulfilled all main intentions. From the city of Lacey's perspective, their main intentions were to initially collaborate with the leaders of the Fred U. Harris Lodge to establish further lines of communication on how the city of Lacey can support the event. Raising the awareness of the event through increased promotional and marketing efforts sufficed the leaders of the lodge, and the city of Lacey Public Affairs Department met the initial intentions with advertisement on the City of Lacey website, promotional videos, banners, and printed programs. Building on the day of the event, the Fred U. Harris Lodge identified areas of concern which occurred during the event itself. Areas of concern included extremely long food lines, lack of resources in keeping cooked food warm, and the identification of an unknown vendor setting up a booth within the rented space. However, the positives within the event included the stage setup, the ability of having the City of Lacey Police Department assist with security concerns, and the continued interaction between the host and the community. In addition, acknowledgement of all presenters, cooks, vendors was ever present, and the continued celebration of the community was high as key community leaders circulated and educated the general public on the meaning of Juneteenth. Solutions were quickly identified in correcting identified concerns for future events. Solutions included renting multiple adjacent common areas within the regional athletic complex, planning resources based on absolute maximum capacity, creating more spaces for holding food to minimize long lines, and also creating additional lines for the elderly and those with disabilities. And lastly, obtaining vendor permits for all vendors permitted to attend the event. Additionally, propositions were presented by the City of Lacey to the Fred U. Harris Lodge in regards to submitting a lodging tax application to assist with event funding, start the event program at a slightly earlier timeframe, and to augment the event with more live music. Other possibilities were presented by the Fred Hugh Harris Lodge, such as collaboration with the American Red Cross for a blood drive, and also having the command team of Joint Base Lewis McChord present for the event. Overall, the City of Lacey and the Fred Hugh Harris Masonic Lodge fully agreed to continue their partnership moving forward in hopes of making the 42nd Juneteenth celebration even more successful than the 41st event. That's all I have.
You're here. Mhm.
That's good. Question, you said, you mentioned solutions were quickly identified. I missed the solution on the food. Did they say, oh, we will do multiple lines or
Yes.
we'll do these things? They committed to doing that.
Yeah, so one of the solutions in there was obtaining another adjacent space. So in this event, they only had one allocated area.
Mhm.
So in the future, they could look to rent multiple areas that are adjacent to each other's, which will create more resources in terms of establishing more tables, maximizing their resources in terms of how much food they want to bring, and also minimizing those lines as well at the same instance.
Got it. And the other thing was unidentified vendors.
Mhm.
I'm
So
curious.
the vendor that was next to our booth, I don't know the
The
name of him. I couldn't.
Healthcare folks.
Yes, so
They just came.
Melvin.
We all thought
Who
that they
invited
were,
them?
well, no,
I
no
don't
one
know.
did. We all thought the other person had invited.
Yeah, so apparently they were that vendor. I don't know their full name. I
Mhm.
can't recall it off the top of my head, but they were an uninvited vendor. They just came and they just set up right next to us and nobody questioned it. And nobody gave it a second thought. Melvin Butler brought it up during the after action review. And he stated how they were, I guess, last to arrive, but
Yeah.
first to leave. So,
Yeah, and they were the only ones that was taped. Can you sign up without healthcare? They were actual vendors. The rest of it was nonprofits just giving out sharing information. So
right,
that's okay.
how
get
they
it.
came about to showing up, no one's really not sure. I mean, we can think of many different ways. I could say that, the City of Lacey did a fantastic job in promoting the event.
Yep.
And so maybe the vendor just might have picked up on the promotion and said, hey, I'm just gonna show up that day and set up. That could be one instance, so.
But if there's a process, then to apply for a vendor, then you can also go and say,
Right.
oh, can I see your vendor pass?
Absolutely, and that was one of the other solutions brought up is the obtaining of vendor permits to then give out to the vendors that will be participating in the
But
event.
if people are actually vending, I think there's a
Yeah.
definition there.
No, and that's a great thing to point out. So the Fred U. Harris Lodge is looking for people that are not vending,
Right.
giving out free information or
Yeah.
free community resources. And so they're gonna work to kind of craft what their vision is, for booths.
Right.
And, the thing that they brought up is they don't want individuals selling things there. This is all
Right.
about community and community connection.
Yeah, and this was the first time they had booths, and that's why we limited it to just a couple to see how it works.
Good
And
learning.
So now if they want to expand it, the process and those type of things would, could potentially.
Which from their standpoint, they said it was still a high success between, the booths that were there,
Mhm.
the folks that were cutting hair. They deemed everything just a huge success
Yeah.
overall, so.
Yeah, the organization I brought there, they were very happy with you know, the interaction with the community and all. And, you know, we made a contribution,
Yeah.
to them, to,
Right.
just to say, hey, thanks, we just, you know, this is wonderful for the community, we have to be a part of it, here, take this, you know, that would help.
Yep.
They can kick us out.
You did an awesome job of pulling that partnership together, both of you. Yeah.
So, yeah, and then the college, you know, that's great for community,
Right.
having them there, and they weren't vending, you know.
Yeah,
There was
and
a
that's
lot
why
of
it opened
service.
them up to further ideas such as collaborating with the American Red Cross, maybe getting a blood drive going at that same instance. You know, thinking of things in that other type of capacity, so.
Yeah, to can grow.
And also so great to instruct them how they might get the tax, what kind of
The lodging
lodging
tax,
tax.
lodging tax
some
application.
application to get a few funds out of that. So,
So I'll just, I'm gonna add on to what Commissioner Clay was saying that, you know, you did a fantastic job, Vice Chair Brown, and I also just want to applaud, my team here at the city. I know we had, Donna Feliciano, Jenny Bowersfeld, Raphael,
feel like
And John
first day
Coke,
or first week.
yeah, all involved, and they did an excellent job. And I also just want to pass on my appreciation and applause to the Fred U. Harris Lodge for an absolutely amazing community event that they have been putting on for over 40 years. So I just want to thank you know, Melvin, Lester, Lloyd, Quincy, Jay, and I'm sure I'm probably missing a few people out there, but you all did, Hank, thank you. Thank you. All did an amazing job putting on that event, and we do look forward to future collaborations.
It just
And,
felt
yeah,
so
and I
good.
learned so much through that process about the city of Lacey and the people that do the great work here. They were on the committee and they came in and, oh my God, they're just so good at what they do. And they were fun and a joy to work with. And they actually did a lot of work, you know, physical work, putting up stuff and erecting it and making sure it was just right and all, and that everything was straight. They were excellent. So it was a great experience working with them, and then also working with the large members. And they learned a lot, you know, and I learned a lot about them. So it all together, I think all of the organizations and groups really grew, you know, for this event. And next year it's gonna be even better, I think. And the organization, it'll be organized even better and run even tighter, I think, next year. And the community is going to benefit as a result. So we like that.
All right, Vice Chair Brown, I only have one remaining item, and that is the inspirational item.
Early.
Oh, yes, but would anybody like to do it
Oh.
in September?
Do we have a volunteer? Inspirational item. Next month is September. It's Labor Day month. Anything else going on that month? That's,
The beginning of autumn. At some point.
Makita,
What date was that?
It is September 26th.
26.
It'll be autumn.
Well, it's my birthday month, so I'm gonna bow out.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll come up with something.
All right, there you go.
Right, that is it for the director's report.
Maybe a quote from Cliff Brandt.
Could
It's his
be.
first book. Okay, so with that, if we have nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I motion that we adjourn the meeting.
And I will second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second that we adjourn the meeting. Any unreadiness, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned at 8:15 p.m.
Awesome. Yeah, good meeting you guys.
Makita, I want to